Hi, welcome to the MCB Community Update. I'm your host, Eric Joseph, Executive Director of the Audible Local Ledger, part of the Massachusetts Audio Information Network, or MAIN, which provides reading services across the state of Massachusetts to people who are blind or print disabled. The MCB Community Update will interview Commissioner John Oliveira quarterly, and it will speak with other members of the MCB to find out more about the services and support that MCB offers the blind community. We welcome feedback and any suggested questions that you might want asked. Now, here is this month's MCB Community Update. Greetings! Our guest this month on the MCB Community Update is Employment Services Supervisor Carol Cullins. I'm eager to speak with Carol today because while I've been involved with reading services for over 15 years, I haven't gotten to meet all the professionals who are behind the scenes and in front of our MCB consumers. And I've heard an awful lot about Carol, so I'm really excited to talk with her today. So let's dig in. Carol, how are you?
I'm very well today. In spite of the rain, I actually love the rain. It's peaceful, so I'm doing great. How are you?
Excellent. I'm doing great. Thank you for joining us. So as we start, perhaps you can tell us just a little bit about your work history. How did you come to MCB? Is this something where you've always been involved in state agencies or involved in some way with helping the disabled or the different abled people?
Yeah, sure. So actually, I worked for a number of years with at the North Central Massachusetts Chamber of Commerce. I was their director of sales and member services, so I had a lot of engagement with employers. I ran a lot of their events, and I sold the memberships for them to become members, and I loved that. Shortly thereafter, I worked at Mount Wachusett Community College, where I actually worked with current students, and a lot of students had disabilities. So I didn't directly serve individuals with disabilities, but I indirectly did. I was their director of alumni affairs and their assistant director of enrollment management. And so I worked with students of all different ages, non-traditional students and such, as well as employers, again, reaching out to employers to help some of these individuals either look for employment goals in the future and to also, engage alumni who were employers or worked for certain organizations as well, so that they could sort of inform current students on what to do. So this just seemed like a natural match. And I love helping people who want to help themselves. I love that. And when people are told, you can't do this, you can't do this, that was me younger. I said, oh, really? Watch me. So I kind of like helping individuals with that mindset who have always been told you can't do something. And then they realize, with a leg up, they can.
Wow, so that's really interesting that you come from almost the business side, the recruitment side, as opposed to the social service side, which many of our interviews have circled around. And many of the people come from either the social work dynamic, or a couple have come from the business side. And so with that knowledge and skill as you took the job, what are some of the specific areas where employment services and you and your team get involved? What do you offer up to these consumers? How does the program work? Can you tell us a little bit about the specifics on what you and your team do?
Yeah, absolutely. So in employment services, we work very closely. We're not counselors. So, as you know, I don't have a social service background. I do have a master's degree, but it's in nonprofit management. My master's, my undergrad is in marketing and corporate communications. So I don't come from a social services background. I'm not a counselor. We are not counselors in our unit. We work very closely with the vocational counselors. A big part of our job is reaching out to employers and helping to dispel the myths of visual impairment and to express all the things that people with visual impairment can do, such as cooking, if somebody wants to do cooking and they're totally blind, well, we've got people working in food service using the knives and, over flames. They just learn to do it a different way. If I lose my vision, you don't want me anywhere near an oven. You don't want me near an oven now. Terrible cook. So, we kind of explain this to employers that as long as they're open-minded enough to understand that these individuals may do things differently. They're going to do the same work. They're just going to do it in a different way. So that's a big part of our job. And then also working with the job seekers to help them prepare for interviews and, maybe refine their resumes, their cover letters, help them apply for jobs if a site might not be accessible. Maybe their application is not accessible. So that sort of thing.
Wow. So thank you for the clarification. First of all, that counseling isn't really involved in this part, although you are kind of counseling the businesses on how to do this the best way, probably, and helping them out that way. So where do you, with what you just said, how do you find those businesses that would be open-minded enough to say, hey, we can make this work. Sure, we're willing to do something that's a little non-traditional, but certainly makes us feel good. And as a company, helps our brand because now it shows we're helping the community and we're involved in a very engaged way, not kind of just saying it and giving a donation to something, but here's the living proof. They are serving you or they are helping you in some way.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have a dual customer, right? The individuals we serve, the consumers, or what we like to refer to them as the job seekers from my unit. But also the employers are our customers as well. So, there are a lot of ways, a number of ways that we reach out to employers. Of course, when we hear of job fairs, especially with employers that are participating in job fairs for people with disabilities, we'll try to engage with them either at the job fair or we'll get their contact information, reach out via email. We reach out to a lot of Chamber of Commerce sites. Of course, I do that because I come from that world, and try to, get engaged with them that way. And then still the old-fashioned door knocking, it's a lot harder to meet with employers initially right away if we walk into a place now, because a lot of places are hybrid and the person you want to speak with might not be in that day, but we still do some of that as well. And then, there are organizations that we participate with, regional employment collaboratives, for example. So the regional employment collaboratives cover almost every region of Massachusetts. And these organizations are designed, it's a mouthful to try to explain it. They're designed to help people with disabilities become employed, but their customers, so to speak, are the agencies that support them. So MCB would be one of their members, for example. So they have people out on the ground also networking with employers. So they're not dealing with the job seekers specifically, but they're informing employers about hiring people with disabilities and the many types of disabilities and dispelling myths and such. And then, so we may have connections with employers that way as well. So there are so many ways, but it's a never ending cycle, I guess.
That's search.
Constant outreach. Yeah. And we do have an internship program, which I didn't mention earlier. And we meet a lot of employers that way as well, because we're talking with them about hosting an intern who we vet the interns and make sure that, we understand kind of what they're looking for, their strengths and weaknesses. If they're in college, some are in college, some are not, what their desires are, their skills and so forth. And we would place them with an employer. And sometimes that's our first engagement with an employer. We'll say, hey, we're going to provide a stipend to them. So if you can host them for 120 hours, however it works out, whether that's 3 weeks at 40 hours a week, 6 weeks at 20, or you're an organization that maybe you have them for 20 hours this week, 40 hours the next, 10 the next, that's fine. As long as it's at least 120 hours, we'll provide that intern with a stipend. You'll get to see how this individual works with their visual impairment. We'll provide the support, the services, which we do when they're employed as well. Orientation, mobility, I think you're going to get to that question anyway, and so forth, and assistive technology. And hopefully they're wowed by them, which is often the case. And then they think, wow, I could hire someone with a visual impairment, and it's great. It works out really well.
So they can kick the tires a little bit and kind of
Mhm.
see, internships are supposed to work that way. We get to see what kind of how motivated the person is, how suited they are for the job, et cetera. I'm curious, with remote work being such a big thing since COVID, have you noticed it's harder to place people because there's more people who have to work remotely, and maybe that's a little tougher to find as many in-person slots where oversight might be needed or helpful with a job seeker?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's harder. It's just different. So, um, in some ways, it's a little easier because we might have an organization who um, is on the West Coast or something, and then
Oh,
the individual lives in Boston. So the skill set matches. So maybe they're going to do the internship remotely. We always like there to be an in-person component if possible. Not everyone is functions well in a remote environment. Some
right.
people, need that oversight. But that's why we vet the interns, the vocational counselors will refer them to us. We will vet them to get a good sense of how they are. We'll consult with the counselors if we have questions like, do you really think this person could do remote work? And if remote isn't going to work, then it doesn't seem appropriate, then yeah, we're pounding the pavement looking for someone who would host on site. And there's a challenge there too, of course, because now, if they're in a hybrid model, now what day is the intern going to be in? Will there be someone supervising them on that day? But every situation is very different. And the internship program, everything is very different as well in terms of the types of work. So most of them are college students, but there are a lot of interns who are maybe older and lost their vision later in life, and they had to retrain, look for a different type of career, and they're going back out and trying something new. Or someone is maybe stocking shelves for their internship because that's where their skill set is. Or we have someone in Draper who's software, they've been hosting for a few years, software developers, people who are computer science majors in college. So it's all across the board.
That's very reassuring that it hasn't just dropped off because of all the remote work that's being done. And while you've spoken about the interns who are consumers, how does one go about becoming an employment services specialist? Is there a class you can take? I know UMass Boston is a big training center for many of the people at MCB. Is that something that you can actually get trained for, or does it come by osmosis of being in the job as an intern and then getting an entry level position and then learning a little bit more and then deciding, oh, that's the channel I want to kind of go into? So can you get young interns right out of college who might want to choose this as opposed to maybe more senior people who have already had a few careers, who are changing careers and coming over to MCB? How do you get those young people so you can own them for 40 years of doing good deeds?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So, kind of all of that. um, I had other positions and changed my career, and when I came over, I thought I would only do this for, I don't know, maybe a year or two for something different, because it's a very long commute for me. I'm in the Boston office 2 days a week, but then I'm all over the state in my role for, otherwise. But it's a very long commute, and I'm still doing this 11 years later. So so I
Wow.
love it. I love it. But there are also, we could take someone potentially out of college if they have the transferable skills. I mean, one of the things that we try to coach employers on is, please look at the transferable skills. This person may not have had the opportunity because nobody gave them the opportunity to do this type of role. So look at the skills that they've earned either in college or in work and see how those skills would transfer into the job that they're looking for. So that's what we're doing. So as long as they have the skills and they prove that they can do the type of work, great. We love to have people with communications, marketing, or sales background, obviously, because of the nature of, the outreach, the big you know, our product, if you will, for employers is the job seekers that we work with and the interns. So we like to have that. I mean, social work is also certainly good, but because we do work closely with the consumers as well, who are looking for jobs and internships. And we do some counseling, but we're not the counselors. We do it very much focused on what they're looking for career-wise.
Understood. Yeah, I hear you on that. Here's something actually I should have asked like right away. Does every person who is blind require employment services or get access to it? Or is that something that's requested specifically by the counselor or whoever is the face-to-face person who is doing the initiation?
Yeah, so the vocational counselors usually send us a referral. I would say 99% of the time it's a referral from the vocational counselor saying, this person is being referred for employment services, and then we'll reach out because, oftentimes once they become connected with MCB, once they're registered with us, their counselor has some work to do with them. They might need assistive technology training. They might need to learn how to navigate space non-visually with orientation mobility services. So they may need to get all those other things done before they're truly job ready or even internship ready. Although with internships, it's a little different. They're still learning. We get that. I mean, you're always learning, but in terms of the type of skill, with internship, they're still learning. So that's how it comes the majority of the time. Sometimes we'll have someone reach out to us directly, and then we'll say, okay, well, you have to make sure you have an open case, and we'll kind of explain how it goes. Or they are an open case, and then we'll go back to the counselor and say, hey, this person reached out to me. Any reason why I can't work with them now? I've had other staff reach out to me saying who aren't in employment services and say, hey, I met this person. He seems really great. I think this person might want a job. And so then I get their name, reach out to the counselor and say, what do you think? And we get the ball rolling that way.
Okay, great, because that actually is part of my next question and the next couple of questions, which was at what point does you and your team get involved? And is it similar to an IEP in schools where there's a plan, a specific plan and program put together for that consumer? Because we hear about orientation and mobility, or O&M, or vocational rehabilitation, or VR. There's a lot of acronyms in this world. Assistive technology, the AT. We talk about that often. So in that timeline, you've told us that it's usually a referral, but where do you normally fit? But even more importantly, do you all put your heads together, or is there one person who kind of has to take the lead because someone has to be the person kind of making the decision and wrangling all the other people in and saying, here's the outline of where we are with this consumer, and here's some of the things we see as potential. Here are some of the things we see that might be hurdles for this person to overcome. Who does that? Is that always orientation that's going to lead that?
No, so the vocational counselors are the case managers.
Vocational, sorry,
So
yes.
they're the case manager who gets everything started. However, there is a lot of back and forth with employment services. So, we might be working very closely with someone on employment services, and then everybody's got a different level of comfort, meaning, the individuals we work with. So some might be more comfortable with someone in employment services and lean on us for everything. So we're constantly going back to the counselor saying, oh, this person needs this or this or that. Others are more comfortable with their vocational counselor, and that's fine. It's totally fine. We just work with them at where they're at, and there is some back and forth. So the vocational counselors put together the plan with the individual. They have to sign it, and so forth. And employment services may be part of that. If they're, coming to us, then employment services would be part of that. But with the individuals that we work with, sometimes there might be a hurdle. Maybe we've been working with them for some time, and now they had a medical setback or something, and maybe we were the first ones to know, so we'll let the counselors know, vice versa. It's sometimes when we get involved, we're just meeting with them constantly, depending on their level. Other times we might meet with them once a month. It depends on how active they are in looking for work.
It kind of spider webs across all of the different services, it sounds like, which is great, so
Yes.
that the information and communication can constantly be updated. That sounds like a great plan. In your particular case with your team, what are your goals for this year? Have there been any major projects that have come around, either coming up or that you've just done? I know the internship is obviously a huge one. And
Yep.
and the part two of that question would be, do you feel like you have the tools you need to be successful in setting those goals that achieving the goals that you've set with budget and headcount, and without getting into all the details of the budget, which I know can be really tricky, do you feel like you have a team that can handle the different goals that you have put in front of them this year?
Yeah, so we did just finish with the internship program. We just had the closing ceremony, which is great. Although there are some interns that are working now because we're very flexible as to the hours that they work and when they do it, as long as they do the 120. But we have to have that, those ceremonies scheduled at some time.
Sure.
But right now we're ramping right up to our job fair. So October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month. It's always going to be that to us. Doesn't matter what else is happening. We're always going to see it that way. And so on September 10th, we are having a webinar for employers, specifically for employers, Visions of Employment, where they can learn about the supports and services. Because when somebody gets a job or an internship, we will provide the assistive technology. The employer doesn't have to do that. We will work alongside them to help them. We'll install the software needed and we'll help them figure out what needs to be done. We'll provide the orientation and mobility services. We'll provide the rehab teaching. So all of those services. The webinar talks about that a lot. And we're going to have 2 employers on talking about the people that they've hired either through our job fair or just over the years and how they've engaged with our services. So that's September 10th at 10 a.m. And then in October, we have the virtual reverse job fair. One is on October 7th at 10 a.m. The other one is October 21st at 1 p.m. We ask employers to attend both sessions because we have a different group of job seekers at each session. And this is a real unique event and I love it. And it's been quite successful, I have to say. So the employers all log on at once. It's very light lift for them. I send them in advance, my team and I, all resumes of all the participating job seekers, as well as a document with just a general profile. So it might say, Eric Joseph, interest in radio, bachelor degree in whatever, just very brief, and, the geographic location so that employers can quickly scan that document and say, oh, I'm looking for somebody who is interested in being a radio host, so let me pull out this resume and get more detail so that, we don't repeat everything that's on the resume. It's just a couple lines just with some general information. And then the job seekers we give them an assigned time to log on. They go in the waiting room and then one at a time, we bring them out. They do a 90-second to 2-minute pitch, a quick introduction. This is my name. This is my interest. This is my education. This is why you should consider hiring me. And the geographic region that they're seeking and so forth. They thank the employers and then they log off and they're done. So it's pretty quick. We match every job seeker with a pitch partner so that they can practice their pitch in advance, make sure that they're as streamlined as possible. And then we constantly communicate with the employer saying, hey, reach out to us after this event. If there's anyone you want to talk with, reach out to us and we'll facilitate a matchup. So it's great. And every year there's been hires from this event, more so than when we used to do them in person because it's a light lift for the employers. And it's the job seekers are really able to showcase their skills in a good way. Whether our very first hire was somebody who got 2 job offers, one from Harvard University, one from Mass General Brigham. So you don't have to be this, excellent speaker, we work with them on it. This person was in food service, working as a dishwasher for years. He got an offer to work in food service at Harvard, and he also got an offer from Mass General Brigham to do linen. So that's the one he took because that was full time. So he was the very first hire doing it in this format. And he wasn't, you're a software developer or a nurse, although we've had those hires as well. So
Wow.
it's been a great.
That's fantastic. The individual, I mean, that specific instance helps bring it to life a little bit, that you can recount that particular person that has gone from beginning, middle to an ongoing career. That's terrific. Um, I
And
was
you mentioned
curious.
manpower. Sorry,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
mentioned
yeah,
manpower.
please.
So we're a very small department. My supervisor used to always say "small but mighty." I think that's absolutely true. We could always use more people. We know that that's not going to happen anytime soon. Which it is what it is. But I think my team and I very much love what we do. We're passionate about it, and I think that helps to energize us, to keep us energized, to keep going. We know that this time of year it's tough. I always tell my husband, just ignore my crabbiness for the fall months. I'll talk to you in October. But we do what we have to do, and the counselors, they do some of this as well. So we lean on each other. We have a good relationship. There might be a job seeker who needs to needs something and we can't get to them. So we might go back to the counselor and say, can you help them with this one thing? Or vice versa. So, I think we all work pretty well as a team in general.
That's great. So you feel like you're set up for success for these goals that you've set for yourself, and
Yeah.
that's terrific, terrific. And I was really curious how you were going to sum me up in 2 lines just from having seen me on this Zoom for a couple of seconds. And it was interesting. It was Eric Joseph in radio and your location, and that's all I need. So knowing a little bit about me personally, we will close with some personal questions about you. Not too personal, but we love to get to know the MCB staff off, when they're off the clock. We're not too curious about your personal stuff. We just want to know who your favorite musical artist or group is, and what was your first and then favorite concert.
All right. So I will say, I don't think I have a favorite musical artist. I love all kinds of music. What I really, really love is theater. Absolutely love live theater. I danced for many years when I was younger, and I taught dance, ballet, tap, jazz, point, did break dancing for a little while. So, so I love everything theater. But I love all music.
Okay, so wait, Lynn, let's ask your favorite musical or theater piece. We'll switch it up a little bit and go into
Yeah.
the arts a little bit deeper.
I would have to say Hamilton. I absolutely loved it because it was more than a musical. It was a message, and I just loved that musical. But I've seen many musicals. But I can say that my very first concert was Styx. So I'm dating myself a little. Styx. Out of the concerts, my favorite would have probably been Prince, when I actually tried to rush the stage with a friend, and then we got pushed back. So again, I'm dating myself, but Chicago was a pretty awesome concert as well. But right now it's musical. I'll go to a musical, any musical, anytime, anywhere.
I actually got to see Prince a couple of times, so I know how crazy and fabulous that concert could be. I mean, it was tremendous. And I
Yeah.
was at opening night of Moving Out,
Oh
in
yeah.
yeah, and that was one of the better shows that I'd seen. And I was at the opening night of Wicked as well, which is because I worked in theater for a long, long time
Okay.
before I moved back to Boston. So I feel that passion. I feel your energy, and I'm sure your team does as well. And I know that people who are listening to this are getting a lot of information here that they had no idea about, because this subject, while we've kind of talked about O&M and VR in different ways, kind of over and over, reinforcing it because they're such linchpins to the whole consumer process. We hadn't really gotten a chance to talk as much about the VR part and how you interact with it. So thank you, because you've given us information that helps take fear away. One of our biggest things is by doing these kind of webinars and podcasts, people who are transitioning, and we're based on the Cape, my reading service, where there are a lot of seniors. It's one of the, Barnstable County, one of the oldest counties in the country. And there's a lot of fear as they transition and are going to be designated and officially, have to lose their license and get officially recognized this way. And the more they know that there's something on the other side for them that's going to help them through this, I think the less fear they might have. We might be able to allay some of those fears. So thank you for being part of that process. And folks and listeners, and if you're watching, if the subjects of rehabilitation, orientation and mobility, and assistive technology, or just registration interest you, we've produced specific podcasts, as I said, on each one of those subjects. And wherever you are listening or watching this one, if you have sight, you can also watch or listen to those. And we've gotten great feedback that they really are helpful. So you can check those out if you have some time. So be sure to join us next month when we speak with vocational rehabilitation counselor, and this is so perfect on top of speaking about employment, Mayanne McDonald Briggs. We're looking forward to that. And until then, thanks again, Carol. We really appreciate it.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye for now.